भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने।
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने।
नामस्ते सरस्वती देवे
Krishna Hare Hare
Wonderful Kirtan Mataji. Thank you very much. Very nice. As soon as you ended, lightning started. Thank you, Mataji. So
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hari Hari Bol. So thanks everyone for joining this Friday satsang.
We cannot hear you, Prabhu.
You cannot hear me?
Here. It's already up.
Me now? You can't?
Yeah, Prabhu, I just can hear is very little.
Very
but
feeble.
Okay.
No, it's not clear.
Oh, wait. Okay. He's putting headphones on.
Can you hear me now?
It's already 100.
yes, Prabhu, your sound is not.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just we can hear this very little.
Is it okay now, Prabhu?
No, Prabhu, yet, not yet.
No,
Amen.
How about now, Prabhu? Now it is the same?
not fully. It's still, the volume is still low.
Is it okay, Prabhu, now? Now can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Same, Prabhu.
Little bit.
It's still same. Still the same.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it is okay.
Okay. Anyways, I have some issue with Zoom, I think. I'll have to log out and log in, but I don't want to do that because I'm not going to speak anyways. So anyways, thank you very much for joining this Friday satsang and wonderful, wonderful kirtan. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu said he is going to join in 5 minutes. So meanwhile, we can just recap what we learned last week. Ramcham Prabhu, you there? So I think we finished chapter 4, I guess.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong. Mukunda Prabhu. So let's open chapter 4 anyways. So we'll quickly do last 2 verses and then we'll read purport from Srila Prabhupada. Let me share my screen. Okay, anybody wants to volunteer to read? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mata, you can do words. We will repeat.
Okay. Yoga sanyasta karmanam
Yoga sanyasta karmanam
jnana sanchinna
gnana samchinna
samshayam atmavantam na karmani
atmavantam na karmani
nibadanti dhananjaya.
nibatnanti dhananjaya. Translation and purport.
One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work. Oh,
You can read the
conqueror of riches.
You can read the purport, Mataji.
Oh, is it big? Is it a lot?
No, this is small one.
Okay, it's going to be tough to look at the screen from cell phone. One who follows the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita as it is imparted by the Lord, the personality of Godhead himself, becomes free from all doubts by the grace of transcendental knowledge. He, as a part and parcel of the Lord, in full Krishna consciousness, is already established in self-knowledge. As such, he is undoubtedly above bondage to action.
Thank
Yes.
you very much, Mataji.
Thank you.
Very well. Hare Krishna, Ajit Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam, all good Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada. Sorry, I was a little late, a little tied up. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu.
So we were just reading the last 2 verses.
Okay.
So yeah, but you can take over, Prabhu. We didn't do recap yet, but if you want, we can do recap.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, anybody volunteer? Ramcham Prabhu? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I can hear Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Danot Pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just opening Prabhuji's notes if I have that. Yeah, Prabhu. So last few verses, we are keep on talking about mm, if we remember that, so karma plus gyan, that is become big gyan. So I'm talking about from previous verses, and then we'll come to that last verse, means last day. So karma plus gyan, that becomes big gyan. Then after getting the more gyan, means knowledge, then again by adding the karma, then it becomes big gyan. So what we are doing, whatever the knowledge, this is the chapter 4th chapter, is the transcendental knowledge. So we are getting the knowledge which we are applying in the day-to-day life, that is the karma, and then by doing the karma with the gyan, we are getting different knowledge, that is the big gyan. So by that way, we are, whatever we are getting knowledge from our guru, that is the 434. So that we are applying in our karma, and then we are getting the result of that. So that is the big gyan. So that Prabhuji was clarified very well. That is with the diagram, means karma plus gyan becomes big gyan. So that was there. And then last we did verse number 41 and 42. So there it was like Sanatana Yoga. So Sanatana Yoga, that is the first 5 section of the purport, for the verse number 42. That is the Sanatana Yoga, that is the eternal activities. And that is having 2 parts. One is the sacrifice of the one's material possession. So by that way, we can do that, like Sanatana Yoga, or the knowledge of the self, so knowledge of the self means the super self resides there in the same body where the self we are, and super self also inside. So if we know that ourself, who we are, so we are the soul, not the body. So that's the thing. So eternal activities. So that is in 2 parts. First part is the giving up the material possession, and second part is the knowledge of the ourself as a soul. Second, we studied that is the 2 divisions of the spiritual activities. First division is, first part is the knowledge of the self, and second division is the knowledge of the super soul, that is the knowledge of Krishna, and first division is the knowledge of the self. And third, how to remove ignorance. So as these are the 5 parts. So this is the third one, how to remove the ignorance. Fourth is the how to awaken in Krishna consciousness, how we can develop the love for the Krishna. Like there is a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ye Atma Suprasidati. So, so we are meant for the pleasing the Lord by the loving devotional services. So how to awaken in Krishna consciousness. And fifth is the how to study Bhagavad Gita under the bona fide spiritual master. So these are the 5, like Sanatana Yoga, we have, that is the eternal activity. 5 parts of this verse number 42. That's the in the depth. Whenever Prabhupada wants to end the chapter, so he gives a very detail, and in the last verse as well as the first verse. So this verse is very, very in depth. So it requires more and more knowledge to understand, and more knowledge to, gain from this one. And verse number 41 was the, like related to verse number 434, that is the Tadbir Padipatena. So in that, in summary, that is doubt has to be destroyed by the transcendental knowledge. So how it will be destroyed? So Guru will be imparting the knowledge, and that will help to destroy the doubts what we had studied, the doubts, the Nephite or the whosoever was doubting in the verse number 39 and verse number 40. So last week we studied, like the doubter is worse than the ignorant. So why doubter is the worse than ignorant? Because doubter is having the knowledge of a spiritual, means about the Lord, but he is challenging the Lord's activities. So that's what doubter is the worse than ignorant. And ignorant, he's not having knowledge of the Lord, but if somebody tells about the knowledge of the Lord, he accepts that and he becomes devotee. So that's all I have from my side, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so very much for giving me a chance to, revise. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. That was very detailed and lots of good information there. So thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramchandra.
All right, so I think we'll just move ahead then. Okay.
We didn't completely complete the fourth chapter, did we? The last verse.
I think for the most part we did, but I mean, maybe today we can just take a few concluding thoughts before moving on to chapter 5. Because there's just a small group of us. We'll just conclude maybe chapter 4 today.
Yes, sir.
And then next time we can start chapter 5.
Yes, sure, Prabhuji. However, verse number 42 is having in-depth, Prabhupada is having so many things, Yeah, so it will be good to meditate more on that.
Yeah, 1 second, sorry. So go ahead. I mean, for text 42, was there anything else that you or anybody else wanted to add?
Now, one thing I just want a clarification. So
Yes, Prabhu.
because Arjuna definitely is not in the mode of ignorance, right?
Right.
So, but still, Krishna says that whatever doubts which have come upon in your heart because of ignorance, he says. So I know he was made as an instrument for preaching us.
Right.
But Arjuna, was he really in ignorance? Because ignorance is the lowest level of mode. Okay, so goodness, passion, and ignorance. So ignorance,
Right.
he cannot come down to that level, Arjuna. Right?
Right. So when Krishna says here in the translation that the doubts that have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. So that ignorance was temporary in Arjun, in the sense that by Krishna's arrangement, Arjun was made to be perplexed so that Krishna could chastise him really here. He's saying that out of ignorance. But basically, the commentaries that we've read, they say exactly what you were saying. I mean, Arjun is a pure devotee of the Lord, an eternal associate of the Lord. So there's no question of him being in ignorance. But it is simply here in this battlefield so that the message could be spoken for our benefit, that he was temporarily perplexed. And so he asked all of these questions. But these are the kind of questions that we would have.
Right. And even Arjuna, being such a highly elevated devotee and a friend of Krishna, so this is the fourth chapter. He's saying, Krishna is saying, take out the ignorance. So Arjuna in the 18th chapter, he says, Nasto moha smritirabdha. So I'm out of this illusion now. So it takes for Arjuna kind of a person from 4th chapter to 18th chapter. What about to speak about us? What to speak about us? How long we should take to come out of ignorance? For him to get so many slokas for him to come out.
Exactly. I mean, so this is a perfectly scripted drama on the part of Krishna and his associates, basically Krishna and Arjun, that the questions that ordinary people like us would have, he made Arjun ask those questions. Now, Arjun, of course, by chapter 18, he realized everything. we've read Bhagavad Gita so many times and still we don't understand and realize. So, yeah.
We have to be extremely careful before we offend or assault or any devotee or non-devotee, because we'll fall into ignorance as soon as we do that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I just wanted to, comment on that. You use the word like, that Arjuna very well played the role. I mean, in the drama, someone plays, so it doesn't mean like he's not knowing up, he's knowing everything. We watch that RG media. So in that, this from Mumbai. So that Prabhu also, what is the name of Prabhu?
Dwarakadish Prabhu.
Dwarikadish Prabhu. He came to Mukta Sangha Prabhu house and he gave very in-person lecture. And the same, similar kind of, if we see that how he presents there, salted butter is there. So for Bhakti Charu Maharaj, about how he was, suffering and with that race and all. So, and many others, So it doesn't mean like Dwarikadish Prabhu is not, knowing that what the devotion is and how he should be. But while acting, how he's acting that, so like he did in other drama, he did the role of Haridas Thakur. So how he's getting beaten, he's beaten by the Koda, and and he's crying also, like he's doing all the roles. So that means he's playing overall, he's knowing everything. But for that moment, whatever the moment, so what I'm trying to say, as we all we are understanding, Arjuna, from chapter 2nd or chapter 3rd, Karma Yoga, where it is starting. So from there to chapter 18, he's knowing everything, but he's in the part of the drama. He's playing the drama, being instrument of the Krishna. So just
Right.
his drama.
Oh, that's very nice, Prabhu. Thank you. Other thoughts and comments? We'll just say the invocation prayer, then we can continue with the discussion. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyanjana Shalakaya Chakshurumetam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kanamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sargana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sargana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So actually today I have to stop at about 8:45. So we have a little time, so I think it's good. We can just do the quick short summary. First of all, was there any other question or anything for based on what we discussed the last time?
I don't have anything.
Ramjan Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhupada emphasized on how to study Bhagavad Gita. So that's a, I know we understand, it's very easy to understand, but it's very tough also. So if you can put more light on that, I see that is there in the purport.
On which one?
Verse number 42, and purport, Prabhupada mentions how to study Bhagavad Gita. And in fact, he said many things in the introduction, very beginning, in the introduction when he is giving for 27 pages.
Yeah.
So if you can put light on that, so that will be good for again revising, and it will be helping in studying the scriptures and improving our sadhana.
So you mean how to study the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, text 34, the Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprishtena Sevaya, that is the main principle. So Mitravrinda Mataji, where is this said? Meaning, where is what said?
Ram Prabhu's question regarding where the information
Mataji, you are breaking up.
about how to study Bhagavad Gita. Thank you. Information on where to find the information on how to study.
Mataji, initially you were breaking up.
Yeah, I thought it was my system, but even you couldn't hear.
Yeah, I couldn't hear. So can you please repeat, Mataji?
So I think I understood Mataji's question. So she was asking where Prabhupada has mentioned, like in the purport, how to study Bhagavad Gita. So she was asking like where from I am referring. So I'm referring from Mataji Burijana Prabhu notes. So Burijana Prabhu had taken notes from Srila Prabhupada, the purports. So I was referring that, and I have pasted in the chat. So yeah, so that's there in the verse number 42 purport. So you can refer that verse number 42, and that's referring to the again back to the verse number 434. So in verse number 42, it's Prabhupada is referring back to the verse number 430. What Ajit Krishna Prabhu was.
What chapter, please?
It's four chapter, verse number 42. In fourth chapter, verse number 42, Srila Prabhupada again mentioning back to that 434 also.
So we're just concluding our discussion on on chapter 4, and so Ramchand Prabhu's question about the proper way for receiving knowledge, it's basically outlined in 434, Tad Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprishtena Sevaya. That outlines the principles on how to receive knowledge. Now, in the beginning of chapter 4, I'm just looking at something really quick here. In the beginning of chapter 4, Krishna talks about the descending process of receiving knowledge. He explains how this knowledge was given by him to Vivaswan. So imam vivasvate yogam proktavanam avyayam. And then he talks about the cyclic succession. Vivaswan manave praha, manu ikshvakave abravit. So Vivaswan manave praha. So he talks about the descending process from Krishna. The knowledge was given to Vivaswan, the sun god. And then Vivaswan spoke it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu then spoke it to King Ikshvaku and so forth. And that's how this knowledge has been given by Krishna. That's the descending process. Now, at the end of this chapter, Krishna talks more about from verse, actually in verse 434, Krishna talks about the ascending process in terms of how the jiva should approach the authorities in order to receive knowledge. So Krishna is saying, I established the descending process. I gave the knowledge. It starts from me, and my bona fide representatives have this knowledge. Therefore, at the end of chapter 4, he says, now it's the jiva's responsibility to receive this knowledge by approaching a bona fide representative of mind. And then when you approach, or when you find a bona fide representative, then how should we inquire from him? Well, tadvidhi pranipadena paripasnena seva. So inquire from the spiritual master submissively. Submissively basically means that one should have faith. You go to a person and inquire with faith, not in a challenging way. Then the reciprocation between the guru and the disciple is perfect. Because the disciple is approaching the guru with faith. He's not challenging. He's not come there in a mood of, well, I don't believe this unless you can convince me somehow. If that is the mood, then there's no point approaching the spiritual master. So Krishna is saying, once the jiva has established faith and is comfortable about the legitimacy of the parampara and the spiritual master that he can interact with, then once that faith is established, then approach him, inquire submissively, tadvidhi paripasnena sevaya, and then render service, sevaya. And when that happens, when you render service, when you inquire submissively, the spiritual master is pleased, and then he will impart knowledge to you. So in the purport actually to 434, Prabhupada starts with saying that the process of spiritual knowledge is difficult. Let me open the purport. I just wanted to say something from there. The path of spiritualization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following the principles of disciplic succession. So that's kind of our responsibility. This is the ascending part. Our responsibility is, one, we want to learn. Two, we develop faith in the association of devotees. And then third, with that inquisitiveness and faith, we approach the spiritual master and ask him questions. So when he says by sevaya, one is able to please the spiritual master and he will impart knowledge. But then the verse also says Jnaninas Tattva Darshina, which means Tattva Darshina means that the guru should speak from scriptures. Guru should speak from scriptures. And Jnaninas implies that the guru should practice what he preaches. So that's why Prabhupada is called an acharya. I mean, an acharya. Acharya is conduct, behavior. Acharya is one who preaches by his own conduct. So another point that we had discussed was that the guru should answer per yatha shrutam, yatha mati, yatha gati. Those 3 points that had been made, which is that what the guru has heard, that he can simply repeat. Yatha shrutam. Shruti means hearing. So yatha shrutam is what he has heard, he can repeat. Yatha mati, what he has understood, that he can explain. And then yatha gati is that what he has realized, that realization can be imparted to the disciple if the disciple is sincere in their conduct and approach. In fact, actually I came across an interesting quote yesterday, which basically says, actually this is by His Holiness Radhanath Swami, said that, that unless a person has pious credits from the past, they will not have an interest in reading scripture. They will not have an interest in reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. And then of those who have those pious credits and who engage in this study of Bhagavad Gita, the ability to realize the information and to live the Bhagavad Gita, that ability comes only from the mercy of the Vaishnavas and the Guru. So, which kind of links to the earlier point that I was making about Yatha Gati, that when the spiritual master, what he has realized, that he can impart to you. The realization can be imparted if we have an attitude of service and an attitude of surrender. So it's basically by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, the mercy of the Guru, that one can start to actually live and realize the scriptures. So, which also ties into one of the earlier points from the beginning of this chapter, about Gyan through the process of karma leads to Vigyan. So Vigyan is realized knowledge. Gyan is just knowledge, information. Here's what it is. But when you act upon it, then it leads to realizations. So all of these points basically are covered in chapter 4. And in this conclusion, since it's called transcendental knowledge, and in fact, last time Mukta Sangha Prabhu had asked an interesting question about why is it called transcendental knowledge? And of course, answer was that it's transcend means anything that transcends, or transcendental refers to anything that transcends matter or material. So regardless of bhakti being the highest in this chapter discussing processes other than bhakti also, still they are transcendental to matter. So that is why this topic is called transcendental knowledge. And so the beginning of the chapter is Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam. Krishna says, I gave this knowledge, transcendental knowledge, to Vivasvan. So when creation took place, Krishna said, I gave this knowledge because I didn't want to leave people unsheltered, without knowledge, without knowing how to come out of this material world. So I gave them this knowledge through the authorities. And then in the end, he concludes by saying, well, nearing the end, by 34, he then talks about this ascending process, like we discussed, that the jiva then therefore should approach the right authority, tadviti panipatena. And then in 42, finally, he says to Arjun that all these doubts that you have, these doubts have arisen due to ignorance. Not that Arjun is ignorant, but he is play acting here as the ignorant person for our benefit. And this can be removed by the weapon of knowledge, and armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. So Krishna is telling him that now that you have this knowledge, now you stand up and fight. So this is a good segue into what we'll discuss next week, which is basically chapter 5, Krishna, I think, that Krishna over here is telling Arjun that first get knowledge and then fight. So this is going to confuse Arjun even more, because he thinks that knowledge means renouncing work, because that's what Krishna had said earlier in the chapter. You should renounce work and be situated in knowledge. And he's saying, Krishna, but now you're saying I should be situated in knowledge and I should fight. So how am I renouncing work? So then chapter 5 will then clarify that question and doubts that have arisen from these instructions that Krishna is giving here at the end of chapter 4. But the main takeaway for us, as far as chapter 4 is concerned, is that this transcendental knowledge was given by Krishna, Imam Rasvate Yogam. So in the first verse, he kind of describes that. And then he expects us, based on our reading of this chapter, to now take the responsibility upon ourselves to understand this knowledge, to realize this knowledge through karma. He's giving this knowledge, so this jnana is there. When we apply, or when we act, when we live this knowledge, it will lead to realizations. And those realizations, this whole process of getting realizations is further enhanced, or our effort to get realizations is further enhanced by the mercy of the Guru and the Vaishnavas. So that's where the Yatha Shruti, Yatha Mati, and Yatha Gati comes in. It's all right, it's about 8:40. I think other questions or any discussion that we'd like to have on this?
A wonderful summarization, Prabhu, of fourth chapter. Very good. So that we get prepared to hear about fifth chapter, karma. One of the most important chapters. Thank you.
And fifth chapter again is Karma Yoga. So it's interesting how there are only, like in Bhagavad Gita, 2 chapters, third and fifth, have been dedicated to Karma Yoga. So very, very.
Which most of us fall into that category.
Right. And all of us perform karma. And like you've said many times, karma is complicated, right? So, but how to convert karma into karma yoga and basically elevate it to bhakti yoga. That's kind of the message that comes out of these chapters. Of course, I mean, the whole topic of bhakti yoga is then discussed in the middle of Bhagavad Gita from 7 to 12, chapter 7 through 12. But the groundwork is being laid here. And Prabhupada in his purports to these in chapter 4 and 5, I mean, he basically cuts to the chase a lot of times and says, but the highest is Bhakti Yoga, the highest is Bhakti Yoga. I mean, he explains the other yogas, but re-emphasizes that Bhakti is the highest. Yeah. And so Krishna is walking us through these different processes, giving us this knowledge of different yogas other than Bhakti Yoga, simply because there are all these paths do exist. And in order for us to be firmly situated in the path of Bhakti Yoga, we need to understand what the other paths are and understand the pros and cons of those other paths, such that we can be convinced about the supremacy of Bhakti Yoga. If we don't have a relative understanding of these other paths, then we won't be convinced we won't be firm in our conviction on the process of Bhakti Yoga. So that's why Krishna explains, to your point, Prabhu, about intentional knowledge. That's why Krishna explains these other paths, which may not be as high as Bhakti Yoga, but it helps us solidify our conviction why Bhakti Yoga is the highest. And for the reader, and for any common reader of the Bhagavad Gita, if they read this, it helps them kind of put their own beliefs in perspective with respect to the supremacy of Bhakti Yoga. And somebody might say, oh, I used to think that just doing my work, that is enough. Like oftentimes you hear, this phrase, work is worship. But work is worship if it is used in the service of Krishna, not otherwise. People might interpret that to say, if I'm working to maintain my family and earning money, that is my worship. I mean, well, that's better than not treating it with that sanctity. But that in and of itself can only feed your material desires and not your desire to dedicate the fruits of your actions to Krishna, or having an understanding that everything belongs to Krishna and so should be used in his service. So that conviction comes only after we fully understand the characteristics of the other yogas and then put them side by side with Bhakti Yoga and then understand why Bhakti Yoga is the highest.
Yeah, nicely said, Prabhu. Thank you. Anybody else has any questions before we let Prabhu go? Yeah, only 2 minutes left.
No, happy to stay. No worry.
Nice, thank you, Prabhu. We'll continue with the 5th chapter, right? Prabhu, you'll be doing 5th chapter too.
If you like, I'll be happy to do it.
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
You want me to do voting? Just kidding.
No,
Yeah, sure,
no
Prabhu,
problem.
definitely. Of course. Yeah.
Prabhuji, 5th chapter, just as a preparatory, that Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And this is first 6 chapters. These are in the, what is it that? Karma Yoga. And then second 6 chapters, that is the Bhakti Yoga. And last Jnana Yoga. So I was just wondering on the name of the chapter itself, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. When it is action in Krishna consciousness, anything which is action in Krishna consciousness, that is the bhakti itself, right? So
Right.
that's the bhakti. So here Karma Yoga itself is the bhakti yoga.
Yeah, karma yoga can become bhakti yoga, because just like, so when Krishna tells Arjun that stand up and fight, why? Because Krishna is saying that's your duty and I'm asking you to do it. So you're doing it for me. So when you're performing action for Krishna's pleasure, then that is bhakti. That is the meaning of bhakti, right?
Yeah. So why now we are studying that in the Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga separately? How to understand these two?
So probably we like we were discussing, the Karma Yoga part and the Bhakti Yoga part is being presented side by side, because even in these chapters, even though first 6 chapters are dealing with karma, Prabhupada takes the effort and trouble to explain that all these yogas are there and Krishna is explaining them to Arjun, but he's also leading him to bhakti, so that we can quickly come to the main point. Prabhupada quickly comes to the main point in the purport, saying that, okay, understand this, that Krishna is talking about, here's karma yoga, is nishkam karma, and so on and so forth, sakam karma, nishkam karma, vikarma, etc. You see, all these all these characteristics are there, the different types of karma are there. You will see different people performing these different types of activities. We ourselves perform all these different types of activities. Sometimes we perform vikarma, sometimes our karma, so on and so forth. But he says, but quickly come to the point where you can perform your actions for Krishna's pleasure, then it becomes action in Krishna consciousness. If Prabhupada didn't explain that in these, in his purports to these chapters, we would end up thinking that, oh, this is okay. We can stay on the Karma platform. Prabhupada has not said anywhere that, you know, that this is in any way less than Bhakti Yoga. So that's why Prabhupada, he gives the purport and he explains that this is what akarma is, this is what nishkam karma is, but the highest is action in Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga, and then how to convert nishkam karma to Krishna consciousness, how to convert akarma to Krishna consciousness.
Right.
Prabhupada is very kind. He's left no doubt. Arjun may be in doubt, but Prabhupada has clarified everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Prabhuji. It will be really wonderful hearing by you on this action in Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Mataji.
excuse me, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
So
Krishna.
when we are doing daily activities, we do something for Krishna. I mean, even in our family life, thinking about Krishna. So whatever activities we do, we dedicate it to Krishna, then it becomes a Bhakti Yoga.
Yes. Yes. See, in chapter 9, I mean, jumping ahead a little bit, Krishna says, Yad karosi, yad asnasi, yad josi, dadasi, yad. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever charity you give, tad karushva madarpanam. Do that as an offering to me. So then it
Then
becomes...
Prabhu, why do we have to split them all into different sections?
Split what
But
all?
it is intertwined, or these are all intertwined with each other. That's why, I mean, even though we have 18 chapters, we have to split it and do it just for laymen. I don't know. Sometimes I get weird questions.
No, Mataji, what it is now in the 18 chapters, Krishna is describing many different things. But all we are saying is that Krishna emphasizes that the highest form of worship to Krishna is through the process of Bhakti Yoga. And he describes these other paths as well. Because in our day-to-day life, see, Krishna is very kind. He has given us a very practical perspective by giving us 18 chapters. Otherwise, Bhakti Yoga or Bhagavad Gita could have been basically one shloka. Arjun, please perform Bhakti Yoga. Thank you. That's it, right? And then so Arjun would have said, but what is Bhakti Yoga? How do I know what is Bhakti Yoga? see, so that's why Krishna has explained all of this, and Arjuna is going on asking questions. So preemptively, Arjun is asking questions that you and I might have. You know, in chapter 7, I think it was, where Arjuna asks, who are the devas, Adi Bhuta, Adi Devi, Adi Yagna? Who is the enjoyer of sacrifices? Who are the demigods? What is this material creation? Because if Krishna said Bhagavad Gita is one verse, perform devotional service, you know, we would still have these questions, right? Who's created this world? Who are the demigods? Why are we performing all these sacrifices? Who is the beneficiary of these sacrifices? So that's why through the course of 18 chapters, Krishna explains all of these topics, but not to get confused, he still recommends that please come to the platform of Bhakti Yoga.
You know, instead of doing it 700 verses, I think it took in Mahabharata 18 days war, or I don't know whether am I right in that conclusion. Somebody was talking about that. So I was thinking, you know, Krishna could have given us, for laymen, foolish people, mudas, could have given one big verse. Okay, memorize this, this is it. You do it, then you know, you get to my lotus feet and you are served, I will take you. So instead of going through all this chapter after chapter, when we get old, we don't even remember a lot of things.
Well, but Manaji, if Krishna had said in one verse that just surrender to me, we would have asked, well, who are you? Why should I surrender to you? How can you tell me that why should I believe that you are God? So Krishna explains in chapter 7, Krishna starts talking about himself. He explains, I am God. You know, so when we go through all of this, we become convinced. Oh, so Krishna is God. And what does he want me to do? Oh, perform bhakti to him. I see. So you see, the explanations that are given, they give us clarity in our mind. Who is Krishna? In chapter 2, Krishna is introducing Arjun to himself. Arjun, this is who you are. Let me tell you who you are. Don't stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself and say, this is who I am. No, that's not you. That's your body. But you are not the body. So see, that's how, so Krishna systematically walks Arjun through these 18 chapters to give him all of these answers. Sumitrinda Mataji, you had a question?
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank
Does
you.
that answer your question, Mataji? Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah. I think it comes when you are getting old sometime. We cannot remember too many things. One verse, that's it in a nutshell. Keep repeating like a mantra. That's it. Thank you, Prabhu.
Welcome, Mataji.
Mitravinda Mataji.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you, Mother. That's such a sweet question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, now
Oh, okay,
yes.
okay, thank you. So, the aspect of non-sectarianism is, you know, it's there in Shastra, but it's not widely discussed. So in my service, one of my services that my Guru Maharaj reflected in non-sectarianism. So I was raised Christian and oh my God, it's leaving my mind now. I just reflect upon how in Krishna consciousness, which is God consciousness, Krishna he has no desire to control. In fact, if there is control or force, then bhakti is not present. And I'm not shastrically inclined, so I can't tell you where it is, but I've heard it many times. And in that way, so for example, in the Christian tradition, you must obey God. You must, and I say must, you know, there's many rules and not just rules, commandments. And when I reflect on that, I see a shift in perhaps one's position on the journey of faith, and also how there are different locations you can be at in that. And I was just reflecting on what you said and how relatable that is to us being in different places, but also having compassion for one another, and sharing in a way that perhaps someone can use at a later point in life. Sharing this Krishna consciousness in a way that relates to kindness, focus, commitment, fearlessness, but also a humility which allows people of other faiths to want to hear, to perhaps want to learn more. And my work in interfaith, I see the beauty of non-sectarianism because, again, I was raised Christian. I know some of, I've studied this, that, and the other. And the aspect of non-sectarianism is so beautiful because it's about really being conscious of God instead of what I like and what's for me and what the way I do it is the best. And my thought is that we should be careful as servants of Lord Chaitanya to not have it come across as being the best, but knowing how we're affected by it, and then is sharing that in a way where people of other faiths go, oh, well, that's interesting. Or maybe they can see some commonality, but it helps them not become blocked. And the whole goal is to not have people become blocked from what Krishna's words are and our actions. So I wanted to thank you for sharing it that way because I see those connections.
Thank you, Madhuri. That's a wonderful thought and very, actually very nice realization and application. And especially since you're in the interfaith space, obviously you've got to be very, very careful about not kind of coming across as our way or the highway kind of thing, But yeah, I mean, I was trying to find a reference since you said you wanted to, you'd heard this piece from Shastra, but didn't necessarily know the reference, and I was trying to find that. But at this point, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, and Krishna, out of his kindness and mercy, doesn't impose anything upon anybody. Like in chapter 4, and actually throughout the Bhagavad Gita, in fact, towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjun that, I hope you've understood what I said, now do as you please. The choice is yours. So, you brought up a lot of wonderful points, and I just wanted to add to one of those was that the beauty of Krishna's instructions, which kind of convinces us about the supremacy of his instructions, because they're so kind and so merciful, is that he explains that since he's Bhagwan and he's full of the 6 opulences, one of which is being fully, he is fully independent. That's one of his characteristics. And that characteristic of independence has been imparted to us as well. So if we are independent, we're independent in choosing what we wish to do, then how can anybody impose upon us? And especially, why would God impose upon us? He gives us the choice, and we're free to follow the choice, but we are responsible for our actions. And Krishna kind of explains all of that I give you the information, I give you independence, whether to do what I say or not do what I say. If you don't do what I say, you'll suffer the reactions. If you do what I say, you'll be blissful. So he just lays it all out and he leaves the independence to us.
Thank you so much. I'm feeling pulled in a direction relatable to Arjun, and sometimes I believe the misconception, respectfully, that we should act in that way. I become very saddened when I think of how devotees are not nice to one another. And, one could perhaps relate, well, not even a blade of grass moves, but if we're not nice to each other, then how can we share, I mean, it's so beautiful, and granted, we are imperfect, we're struggling, but intentional or repeated unkindnesses, and hearing it, I mean, and again, I don't want to judge, but I just like hearing this evening, it kind of opens up these portals to what are we doing? Where are we? Like, and I'm not, again, not critical. I'm speaking of myself as well, because I'm not perfect at all. But this platform of bhakti it's high, but it's not so high that we shouldn't want to reach it. Sometimes, as a child, you see something really, mom will put something really high up because she doesn't want you to get it, right? But it's so attractive. And if it's good for you, actually, she might put it down a little bit, just so you can get a taste of it. You know what I mean? It's already offered. It's okay. That kind of thing.
Right.
But it's so beautiful and beneficial when we actually remove ourselves from it. Our
Mitra,
emotions of I like this person, I don't like this person. This person's not doing this the right way. This person's dhoti's not ironed. She doesn't have money. He doesn't have money. These things that separate us and make us, they're all materially based, because they're the mind and politics, which, so I'm sorry, Martha, did you say something?
yes, Mitra, you know what? Sorry to interrupt you, conversation.
No.
But don't worry about what others are doing sometimes. It will come eventually to you. What we can do to transform ourselves, that's the only thing we have in our hand. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to change also. So when we look at others, what they are going to do, maybe they are finding it very difficult to change their samskaras, right? Saying their attitude. So what we can do, we can slightly change a little bit kindness from us. We show love or kindness to another human being or another living things. Maybe they will learn from us. So what else can we do, right? It's very difficult for other people to change, even if it is difficult for us, even to change one habit. You know how long it takes to change one habit? Maybe it takes about 3 weeks, maybe 1 month to change slightly one habit from us, right? So I don't think we are in any way. If Krishna is putting up with us with all kinds of problems, all kinds of faults, we are going through millions of years. So I guess we have to put up with some nonsense or useless talk or something with other people. It has to come from within us. I think we have to just surrender to Krishna, fall at Krishna, this is the fault I have. Just do something. There is nobody else who is going to do for me except you, right? So that's what we have to do, the transformation. I don't think anybody else is going to do that. Maybe it's difficult for other people, right? That's my little 1 cent conclusion. Sorry.
No, thank you, Mata. I appreciate as always your perspectives and points of view. So what I'm speaking of is from 2 different perspectives. So there's aparad, right? And from a compassionate perspective, when devotees are hurting each other or anybody's hurting anyone, then that hurts Radharani. It's not even hurting me or you or like that. So when it's intentional or persistent, I feel sad for people, especially if we are chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, if we are hearing Shastra, and progressing and doing what we can where we are, because it's not washed away when you do service. This is a myth. I don't want to call it a misconception because it is said in Shastra, but my Guru Maharaj was very, very, very clear. We don't have to be perfect, but what we do with intention, if it's malice and we hurt devotees, there is a price to pay. There is, because it's an offense against Srimati Radharani. So we, and knowing who she is or attempting to know who she is, it should make each and every one of us very sad, and at least have the desire, as you said, to improve ourselves. But if we're being compassionate to others, just seeing it or knowing of it is also very sad, because, you know, it's a learning process, and, you know, sometimes lessons are not, you know, comfortable. So anyway, I don't want to go into too much more. I believe it's a bit off topic, and I do appreciate Ajit Krishna Prabhu's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. We took go over time, I guess. You want to?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that was nice, Mother. Thank you for
That's nice.
sharing those thoughts and realizations. I think we can
Yeah.
continue those next.
All these topics will be eventually discussed in subsequent chapters. Actually.
Yeah.
How to speak nicely, how to act nicely in the mode of goodness. So Krishna speaks all. He gives us this. So we can discuss that eventually.
Yeah, but some very good points about consciously one should not make any mistakes, aparadhs. There's a price to pay for sure. Be careful.
Thank you, Prabhu.
All right, Prabhuji, Mataji, thank you all very much.
Thank you
Hare
all.
Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhishya kripasnubhaya vichapnikanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo.
Vaishnava Namaha.
So I have a couple of
Thank you so
announcements
much.
before I let everyone go. So
Thank you very much.
sorry for that.
Yes, Prabhu.
So Saturday, there's a program in ISKCON, New Jersey by Gauranga Prabhu. Saturday, not on Saturday, Sunday, sorry. Anybody wants to visit. And Sunday morning, as usual, we have Pauganda Pravachan class session. So I made to get the details about the speaker. I'll share tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, same Zoom credentials. Please join and encourage kids. Thank you very much. And Sunday is Ekadashi also. Please fast from
Yeah, Sunday, guys.
Sunday is Ekadashi, Kamiki Ekadashi. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
For your time.
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki jai, Isliye Ajit
Yeah.
ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your time. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare